CeeDee Lamb is pretty convinced that this won't be the only season that George Pickens is in Dallas. We'll break it down next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. And on today's show, we're going to break down all the biggest winners and losers coming out of day 2 of Dallas Cowboys training camp practice. But before we do that, Landon, let's talk about what CeeDee Lamb said in his post-practice press conference, which I thought was fascinating. He basically said something to the effect of, he's really excited to work with George Pickens, and this is not going to be the only year they play together, which is fascinating considering that George Pickens is on a 1-year deal and set to become a free agent next year.
Yeah, maybe CeeDee knows something that we don't know. And look, I haven't been against the idea of re-signing George Pickens at all. I think, the idea that everybody's had is let's see him play. Let's see how the situation plays out a little bit, and then, maybe work on a contract. And I think that's probably best for the Cowboys at this point, who have been very clear that that's their current modus operandi. And then I think that, for a guy like for Pickens, he's obviously going to earn more money if he waits a little bit. So I do think that hopefully that is in the works. But I think that that's also, in a scenario where this all hits, this all works out, and everybody's happy with the situation.
My guess is this is just CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens talking about how they want to play together. And honestly, it makes sense for Pickens if he can stay in the same offense with the same quarterback and he can be a de facto number 2 receiver. It's probably better for his long-term outlook. But let's talk about what actually happened on the field, because it was another strong day for the pass catchers. CeeDee Lamb had a big day as usual. I feel like we should at least mention him because he's always winning these practices. He had a strong day, but it was another good day for George Pickens.
Yeah, I mean, again, we saw a little bit of kind of a mixed bag from Pickens on day 1, a little bit of some miscommunication between him and Dak, which again, all this is very early. It's going to happen. They're still installing stuff. And so, but today, everything looked sharp. You saw a couple big plays from all these guys. The only thing was that we saw that Pickens went down a little bit with what sounded like it ended up being just a cramp in his calf, but everyone's kind of holding their breath for a little while as he was down to practice. Welcome back, training camp, right? I mean, that's just like, I hate it, but at the same time, it's like it's a symptom of a beautiful time of year, so I'm okay with it.
I got the tweet on my phone, and it just, your stomach sinks, right? Like, oh no, this is awful, and then it's just crap. So we are in training camp mode as well. We're still not ready for regular season yet.
That's right, and I think we haven't guarded our hearts yet from all the inevitable injuries that are probably going to happen at some point. So, but yeah, I mean, get back to it. Like CeeDee had a really nice catch on a screen in which he kind of flared out from a slot spot. That was a really interestingly designed play. I don't know if you noticed that, but Turpin was in the backfield and kind of flared out to one side, and then CeeDee was in the slot and kind of just did a similar kind of flaring motion out to the wide part of the field. Dak just swung it out to him quickly, and CeeDee kind of wound his way back through traffic, got a couple of really good blocks from the offensive lineman, and then you see Turpin streaking down the sideline to kind of come downfield to try to block and cut off Fowler. So, it just seems like there's, we talked about the energy, but everyone's like everyone's sprinting to the ball. We talked about like what we wanted to see in the competitiveness, contested catches, and not just people sitting wide open all the time. Like, we want to see a back and forth that lets us know that both sides of the ball are doing things. And I think you saw a lot of that today. Yesterday, we saw the defense kind of take over, and they definitely got theirs today. They had a lot of turnovers. They punched the ball out a bunch of times. They had some interceptions, but at the same time, you still saw CeeDee Lamb, you saw Pickens, and I think we also need to talk about Jake Ferguson and the day he had, because he had another really big day today.
Yeah, we should talk. Let's do it right now. I thought Ferguson played really well. He had a lot of nice plays over the middle of the field. I think I sent out a tweet today that said he should be one of the biggest winners in this offense with the addition of George Pickens. He's just going to have a lot more room to operate in the
Yep.
middle of the field than what we saw in previous years, just because Pickens is going to keep those safeties honest. And this is a big camp for Jake Ferguson. He's going into a contract year. Last year did not go well. I think if he has a strong season, if it's 700 yards and 5 or 6 touchdowns, he could potentially earn $13-14 million a year. This is why he needs to have a big camp. It's a big time opportunity for him.
Yeah, I mean, last year was a setback. I mean, he was definitely on track to make some pretty serious money. I mean, I think that that's still on the table, but I mean, imagine if he had had a borderline or a Pro Bowl year last year, and then he's going into this year, with that kind of record. It's still plenty of time for him to make a great impression. And tight ends are very difficult to find, especially good ones. And if he can kind of step into that very difficult to get into higher 2 tiers of NFL tight ends. I think that he's going to make himself quite a bit of money, whether that's with the Cowboys or with somebody else.
We're going to talk about the offensive line, the defensive line, and some other standouts in a little bit. But before we do that, Landon, I wanted to talk about Brian Schottenheimer before practice, talking about how the offense is not going to be static this year. There's going to be lots of shifts, lots of motions. If you're watching a lot of these routes, it's the same route combinations that we saw with Mike McCarthy, or at least for the most part. It's just they're happening different. Like we saw a lot of comeback routes and stop routes, but the way that they're happening and to be being deployed, and lots of jet sweeps. And you mentioned the play with Pickens and Turpin where they're going kind of opposite directions. I think that's what you're going to see more from Dallas this year.
Yeah, and I mean, here's the thing that Cowboys fans need to just get over is that a stop route is in every single playbook in the NFL, no
Dak just
matter
likes
what.
throwing it. That's the thing.
And that's the other part of it is that Dak actually likes throwing that route. I think what it is that it's the combination of routes and how they're deployed, how they're lining up pre-snap, and are they moving at and before the snap. Those are all the ways that you kind of can get the little bit of edge on the defense, make them shift, make them talk. One of the things that Schottenheimer talked about was how elite the conversation was on the defensive side, how the communication was so good. And the way that you find that out is you test it, right? Like you make them communicate by sending your tight end across the formation, changing the strength, which can change the run fits, it changes coverages. So yeah, force the issue here and make defenses kind of chase you a little bit in the information game. I think that's where you're going to see some of these edges come in. And I do want to say, like, going to the routes thing again, we have seen Schottenheimer put his money where his mouth is, right? We've seen a little bit of the more condensed formations. You saw it today. We've seen plenty of motion. We've seen play action, right? I think one of the other things that I've been calling for that I cannot believe we didn't run more when we had Brandon freaking Cooks on this team is more over routes. Yeah. We're seeing these tight ends not catching the seam routes as much, which I know we're going to see because Dak loves to throw that. But seeing them run more over routes, more kind of sail concept stuff. I think you saw Span Ford catch a ball in one of those. You saw Ferguson catch at least 2 passes doing that. So I think that is a route that Dak throws well. It really can take advantage if you can block it up correctly. Really takes advantage of defenses. So just more stuff added into the playbook and how it's deployed. I think that's what's important. And so far we've seen it.
Yeah, and Schottenheimer mentioned more pistol formation, which I've been wanting to see for a while because I think as Dak ages and he becomes less and less mobile, I still want the Cowboys to be under center, and pistol is like a nice little compromise, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would love to see Dak playing more out of the pistol. We'll see that. He also mentioned that the Cowboys are going to run some wildcat stuff this year. I don't get too concerned about that because it's such a small amount of snaps to even discuss. But then I was thinking, who's even the Wildcat quarterback on this offense? Is it Joe Milton? Is it wow? Okay, now is it
now?
Honestly, it's probably Kavonte Turpin, isn't it?
I mean, listen. The one thing about a Wildcat quarterback is that it's got to be someone that is extremely reliable with the ball in their hands, because like you're catching a snap, it's a different kind of thing that you're not going to get a lot of practice. So I'm not exactly sure. I mean, you may just think about running Milton and see he's a big physical guy who can run. Maybe that's what you're doing. But I have to think that it's going to be a running back or someone who is used to handling the ball or taking pitches or that sort of thing, because you're not going to get a ton of work doing this during the week. So you need to be reliable in that way.
All right, let's talk about the battle on the edges. Let's talk about the offensive line, Tyler Guyton specifically, because I know you've got some good notes on him. Let's talk about the former first-round pick next. This episode is brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. Listen, it's fantasy footballs here. I am so excited. Fire up that group chat, get your draft board ready, and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions that we live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, I am playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. My league, which has been going on for 18 years now. We've been on Yahoo this entire time. It's easy to set up. The mobile app is absolutely fantastic. And the smack talk just hits a little bit different in the message boards. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. And it all begins on August 4th. So stay tuned and start creating your fantasy league on Yahoo Fantasy Football at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That is yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Let's dive into the offense and defensive line, because this is where we actually had some of our biggest takeaways from this practice. Again, no tackling. It's not full pads or anything yet. So take all that in consideration when we talk about this.
Definitely.
But what were some of your notes from this practice?
Well, the first thing I just wanted to talk about, because I've just gotten 2 days worth of data on it. And again, we're not going to talk about performance quite yet, because like we said, there's no pads. But I think one thing that we can talk about is body composition, how guys are moving around out there. And I think the headline in those categories to me is Tyler Guyton. He looks like a different person. Like he's playing with a lot better flexibility in his hips and his legs. You can see it in his stance. Look, I mean, he's a really, really tall tackle.
Yes.
And look at him, like in any of these pictures, when he's in his stance now versus other years, he's at the same level. His helmet's the same level as the other guys across the line. And we have a tall offensive line overall, but I mean, the point being that you need to have a high level of flexibility to coil up, get into your stance, and be able to deliver blows. And on top of that, there's been issues, especially with Guyton, with his balance, right? Like being able to shift directions without kind of losing momentum, and being able to kind of be athletic without kind of falling over and then grabbing a guy. And that's, what we saw some holding stuff. And I think that's where you're seeing him get out of his stance in a balanced stance. He's not overreaching as much. You're still seeing it. I still saw it a couple times, but it just overall, he just looks 100% more comfortable. He looks leaner. He doesn't look smaller. He just looks tighter in the areas where he's supposed to look.
Very lean. Yeah.
And his, I mean, I think part of it too is that, he's just changed like the way he's getting into his kick step, but he just looks like a different player in a lot of different ways. We'll see how that changes when the pads come on. But I think the one thing that you can say is that he is a much better body prepared player for the NFL than he was last year, and that he's a much more flexible person physically than he was last year.
I was able to see just about every snap from the 11-on-11 period. And man, there's a lot of times where he's taking the edge, and this is not a bad group of pass rushers, even without Micah Parsons, and he's really widening them out. And it was cool to see. There were a couple times, and maybe it happened now on Tuesday's practice, where I think Kneeland got him around the corner one time, but overall, I thought he had a pretty good day.
Where he kind of reverted to the kind of getting over the skis a little bit, was trying to chase a guy. It happens, and that's gonna happen too, because now that you're going against real guys who are, not just the other guys at OLP, that these are professional defensive ends now, and Sam Williams, like you said. Like, you can say a lot of things, but in this kind of situation, is a good test for how you're getting off the ball and how you're getting into your spot, because he is an explosive player. So, and maybe we should transition to a conversation about Sam Williams, right?
Sure,
Like,
let's go ahead and do it.
Again, another guy who I think really had a nice practice and looked really quick out there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm shocked that this is somebody that tore their ACL a year ago because he doesn't look like it at all. I mean, he is explosive. There were multiple times where he's way up the field, and you can tell that he was trying to tone it down a little bit today compared to or on Wednesday compared to what we saw on Tuesday. But I also think one of the strengths of his game is his ability to convert speed to power.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I just don't know if he's doing it a lot in practice because I don't know if he wants to try to bury an offensive lineman after getting in trouble on Tuesday.
Yeah.
But you're seeing the speed, you're seeing the athleticism, and it's nice to see.
Yeah, it's just nice to see him moving around. And Kneeland as well, I think, is another guy who he doesn't look as top heavy, is clunky, like he's getting in and out of his when he has to get inside versus outside, or he has to move twist on a stunt. You're seeing him move a lot quicker, but he also looks bigger, which is great. So I'm really hopeful for, just like I said, we're not talking about performance yet because this isn't performance, but as far as body composition, balance, speed, athleticism, really like what we've seen in the changes in Tyler Guyton's body.
Mm-hmm.
Really loved what we've seen, the way Fowler's bounced back from the ACL. Really like what we've seen from Kneeland in his ability to even put on maybe some, redistribute the weight, right, get some more lower body there too, hopefully kind of help him with being a strong side player, because I think that's ultimately where he's going to end up as a really good strong side defensive end, but also get a little bit more quickness to kind of be able to get inside and be a little bit more evasive against offensive tackles.
All right, let's talk about a couple other guys. Not you, the Cowboys' 2 picks for the first 2 rounds this year, Tyler Booker and Donovan Ezraku. And this is always the hard part of training camp, is trying to decide whether to be happy about one player's performance or disappointed in another. But I counted in the 11-on-11 drill at least 2 clean sacks for Donovan Ezraku coming off stunts, and then another that I think he would have got a sack on, and then another that he would have had a hurry on. And a lot of them were either coming from stunts. There was a play where he was actually standing up off the ball and he blitzed and he was able to duck around Tyler Booker. One of my concerns about Tyler Booker going into the pre-draft process is he's so big and the athleticism and quickness just isn't there. And I was always worried about how he's going to handle stunts. Then again, Donovan Ezraku, this is what he does so well. He's a smaller edge with these long arms and a really quick first step. It's a tough matchup for him. But Ezraku had a fantastic day.
Absolutely. And you wonder too, they had like a blitz period today where they were just basically blitzing almost every single play. You wonder if they weren't specifically also mixing a lot of twists there to work Tyler Booker to kind of get used to, because honestly, I don't think it's not a physical limitation, right? Because he could do it. It's that he's not like elite quick. So what that means is that he's got to process and see
he was late, and you can see it. There are a couple times where if you're just watching his head, he's late to see it, and by the time that he sees it, Ezraku's already gone.
That's right. And so that's what he's got to work on, is he's a smart guy. He's punching himself after seeing that tape, especially multiple times. He's just got to have his head a little bit more on the swivel. He's got to be looking out for it a little bit more. He has the athleticism to get there, but he just doesn't have the athleticism to recover from not getting there on time. So just got to be a little bit quicker with his eyes, and I think he's going to be fine there.
One more thing before we move on to some other standouts from day 2. Saw a lot of Solomon Thomas with the first team. Now, I will say, in the reps that I watched, you kind of have to watch them in order. And Mozzie Smith did start next to Oso Digizua, but it was Solomon Thomas playing that one technique spot. And even on early downs, because they have the yard markers there, the down markers. I wonder if there's a chance that Solomon Thomas is going to get one technique snaps for the Cowboys this year.
I think all these guys are going to get one technique snaps. I think that's what we're seeing here, is that the group of guys that are here now, except for maybe, Toa is going to get only one technique probably, but I think the guys that we're seeing that are in camp as it currently stands are all going to be 1 and 3 guys, and where they fall on that spectrum of how many snaps they're taking, depends on which player they are. But I think that that's what they're looking for in these defensive tackles, these valued guys, is that they want them to be able to line up both, because they may use you in different ways. Like the way they use Osa Odigizua, like if they plugged him in at the one, as a penetrator trying to beat a center, right? Like I think that's different than how they would line up Toa in there, right? So
Yeah.
I think the plan is to use the kind of more talented drafted guys, signing guys that they have in a couple different locations, and then if they need to go out and get hog mollies that are just going to sit in the middle of a gap and not be moved, that's when we're going to go see a signing in late August when these guys start signing with the teams.
All right, let's talk about some other standouts from day 2 of training camp practice. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Do you ever wish that managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're trying to grow your savings or you're planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, all of your investments, and your spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building your wealth. My family has used Monarch Money for the last 8 months, and it's unbelievable how much money we've been able to save. We were spending too much on a couple things. We cut it back, and now we're actually growing some of our wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That is monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We wanted to let you know that the Locked On NFL Top 100 is here, voted on by the host of the Locked On Podcast Network. Our top 100 was formed by experts that cover these teams and players every single day. Find the full list on Locked On Sports today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Lane, let's talk about some other day 2 standouts and notes that we had from this practice. What do you got?
Man, first of all, I think that, we saw a little bit more of Nate Thomas. We heard a little bit more about Nate Thomas from Schottenheimer during the press conference. It was really great to kind of see or hear anything from him because we just hadn't really got any kind of updates. He was a draft pick who we didn't see a ton in his first year. We didn't hear a bunch about the offseason, which is, not unusual. It's not like he didn't do anything. It's just he's one of these guys that you don't hear about because he's kind of lower on the totem pole. So it was good to get an update of him. It's weird to see him out there wearing number 71 because I keep thinking of Lale Collins. But yeah, like it's good to see him moving out there a little bit. I think that we saw Awesome Richards out there. I mean, I think he had a pretty decent day. It was a lot of back and forth on the edges, between the defensive ends and the offensive line. I feel like they definitely got equal time winning the game. I think we wanted to talk a little bit about Jack Sanborn.
I've got. So this is just me being a nerd. I was looking through some of the clips, and Sanborn is the only person that I saw having the green dot on the back of their helmet. And again, if somebody's at practice or you see it, please let me know. But I didn't see it with Kenneth Murray. Could be wrong. But if you're not familiar with what the green dot does, that means that's the guy that's getting the plays called into their helmet. And what that usually indicates is the player that's going to be on the field the most, right? Because you can only have one green dot helmet on the field at a time. And I saw Jack Sanborn on the field for every single snap with the first team defense. He obviously knows this defense better than anybody else because he played under Matt Eberflus in Chicago. Maybe that changes as we get further into camp, but I thought that was notable coming out of day 2.
Well, I think it's especially notable. Let's tie into what Schottenheimer said early in his press conference. He talked about the elite communication that was happening on the defensive side. And I think that has probably everything to do with Jack Sanborn. I mean, he's the green dot, which is typically the guy that not only is communicating the play that's being called in by the defense coordinator, but he's also the one kind of in charge of relaying all the adjustments that they're going to make pro snap. We just talked about that, right? How defenses have to make adjustments as offenses, shift and move and everything like that. He's the guy who knows the defense well enough to be certain that, like, hey, I know exactly what we're going to check into every single time there's a move because I've spent the last 2 or 3 years he did with Chicago learning this. So having this guy come over and who knew exactly, I mean, it's a lot like Kendricks, right? Where he knows the defense inside and out. He can just call it for you at this point, and he's good enough that you can trust him to play out there. You don't necessarily need to rush. But I think there was one thing I'll just add it too. Eberflus was also had Overshown next to him the entire time, and Overshown had a play sheet in his back pocket. And after each time he was calling, he was leaning into Overshown's ear and kind of talking to him. So I would imagine that eventually that might be Overshown's job, which makes a lot of sense because I feels like he's a really great communicator as well.
It just is that Overshown's job this year, or when Overshown comes back, are they going to want to maybe limit the snaps? I think we're waiting to see. Last thing, the running back, they continue to rotate these guys: Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders had a couple nice cuts, a couple big plays. They were using Hunter Lipke with the second team. We saw some more of Jaden Blue today, but overall, it seems like it was a pretty decent day from the running backs.
Yeah, Williams had a fumble. That was the only kind of negative that I saw. But yeah, Sanders had a nice little big run. So just kind of, again, performance is one thing because these guys are running through, even if they're not, being tackled in the backfield. I'm using air quotes because, sometimes I think there's a dispute on whether it's a 60-yard touchdown or a 3-yard loss, depending on who's calling the tackles. So yeah, I think everyone looks good. We got to wait to get the pads to judge some of those guys like the running backs and the linebackers.
Yeah, because a lot of the running back position is, can you break tackles, right? And then we'll see if Schottenheimer makes this a tackle. I mean, we have not seen the Cowboys be a tackle to the ground team in practice for a long, long time. Maybe that changes under Brian Schottenheimer. We'll see. All right, that is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. Make sure you download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. We will be back on Friday to continue to break down all of the happenings from Dallas Cowboys training camp. So make sure you guys tune in.